following up our story from yesterday, the Pentagon has no answers as to what those things were flying over Langley. News Nation continues to cover it, and they did a 4 to 5 minute interview about it. I'm going to show that, and then we'll discuss it afterwards. But this is something, if you watched yesterday's episode, and thank you for those who did. Thank you for the new people who just came in and subscribed and all of that and more. We discussed how in 2023, it was December, I think it was something like, 17 days, there were these reports of these lights and potential drones or whatever it was, and they have been looking into it. And they've had meetings with Arrow. They've been having meetings with DOD. They've been meetings with NASA. And nobody has any answers as to what the hell is going on with these things in particular. So here's the piece on News Nation. Let's discuss this, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Here it is.
Lieutenant General Richard Newton, former U.S. Air Force Assistant Vice Chief of Staff and News Nation senior national security contributor. First of all, any guesses as to what these are? The Pentagon saying non-hostile.
Well, good morning, Marnie. You used the right word. This is probably the more bizarre stories you and I have covered over the last couple of years. Let me say also, when I oversaw global operations on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, part of my portfolio was then what we termed unmanned aerial vehicles and so forth. Secretary Rumsfeld, we used to say, there are unknown unknowns and known unknowns. I think this put it in the known unknown category. There's still, the Pentagon's is still they're being very forthcoming. They don't know. They don't know the sources of these. I suspect, I've talked, my sources tell me that I don't believe it's someone who's a hobbyist per se, because these were rather fairly complex drone operations during the nighttime over 17 days, as you mentioned, back in December. And they were flying at 100 miles an hour. Some of them were in formation. They varied their approach to the base, not only over Langley Air Force Base. By the way, Langley's a huge Air Force installation. I've flown in and out of Langley. It's the home of the F-22 stealth fighter. But also they flew near over the largest naval port there over in Norfolk across the bay. So very complex, and I don't think the Pentagon has any answers on this one, Marnie.
Not at least that they're willing to share. So what types of action would the U.S. military take in an instance like this? I mean, 17 days, I know it's a bit of speculation on your part, but what would they have done to try to get more information about who they are and who is operating them?
Well, what they did was there was the commander of U.S. Northern Command actually had ordered a couple tactical fighter aircraft to try to fly alongside to try to garner as much information about these drones. I don't know how much of that information was garnered effectively, but it's not just the military. The FBI was brought in, local police authorities and so forth, Department of Homeland Security. A couple concerns here, Marty. First is the intrusion of highly restricted airspace over Langley and other military installations in that area is very concerning. Secondly, the safety of flight. You've got commercial and private aviation flying in around that large swath over in the Tidewater region. As I mentioned, I've flown in and out of that area quite a few times. There's a safety of flight issue here with these drones popping up for this period, and especially at nighttime. But still, they have not come up with, what the source of these were. And I may also offer up, it's not unique that drones fly near military installations. That's been happening actually for many years. But a couple months previous to this, according to the Wall Street Journal, that there were actually 5 drone incursions near Department of Energy nuclear sites out near the Las Vegas area also. I don't believe they're connected, but again, it's like Secretary Rumsfeld said, this is a known unknown.
Right. What would lead to them shooting them down, right? What would raise the level of concern that they would need to take them out?
Well, if there was any what appeared to be an intent to do harm at any of these military installations, federal law actually prevents the U.S. military from shooting drones down over military installations unless there is an exhibited specific hostile intent. That did not occur back in December nor back in October, I believe, out there in the West and Nevada area. So it'd have to be hostile intent that would cause danger to not only the installation itself, but certainly the men and women there as well as their family members. But that wasn't the case apparently back in December.
What about the size of these drones, if they are in fact the size of cars? What does that tell you?
Well, again, my sources tell me they varied in size. One, they're up to about 20 feet long. They flew at about 100 miles an hour at varying altitudes. Some there were smaller drones. They were flying actually in formation. Say a flight of two flying above another flight of two. The smaller drones were what we call quadcopters that were flying along. These are relatively small, probably less than a couple pounds. So that's why I go back. This isn't a hobby. This is more of a complex operation of these drones that were flying in formation with different types of drones in formation, which is, again, there's a conundrum here of trying to figure out not only what, but why.
Yeah, mystery and who. All right, Lieutenant General Richard Newton, thank you.
So I think the most interesting thing there for me is a lot of the stuff that we talked about yesterday. Majority of that was in the report there, but I think the most interesting is that question of, well, why aren't they shooting them down? And then the follow up to, well, if they're not showing any hostile intent, then why would you? That then I think kind of negates the fact that they don't necessarily have any answers. They got to have some answers, right? Because if it's foreign craft, if it's foreign drones, well, that's intent to spy. So you shoot them down. They shouldn't be in your airspace. One would say, okay, well, we know that it's probably from China. We know it's probably from Russia. Well, then shoot it down so they can't get any information. Shoot it down in the same way we did that the Chinese balloon that time. Shoot it down. That would make sense. Okay, so that we rule that out, right? Okay, so then it's what? Then it's balloons for 17 days. They're not going to shoot the balloons down because balloons aren't hostile. You should get them out of the sky because they're causing crap for 17 days. So we'll rule that out. It's not balloons. Drones from somebody else, U.S. related. It's not military, civilian, not supposed to be in the airspace. Shoot it down. What does it mean? So I don't really buy that they don't have any answers. I think that the reporter, Marnie Hughes, I think she said it right. They just don't have anything that they're willing to tell us right now. There's nothing that they have answers. They just don't have answers that we're going to hear. And will we ever hear them? I don't know. But this should, and the reason I wanted to bring it up again, this should be a topic of conversation in November for the hearings. When the hearings happen, these questions should be answered. These questions should be asked. What is the current status? What is happening? At the cockamamie arrow thing that they're supposed to have, that should be asked. It won't be, but it should be. So they are looking into this, and I wonder if it's one of these things where, you get people who are reporting, the few people who are reporting on it. If the Pentagon goes, it's News Nation, they're covering it, they cover the UFO stuff. So, it's like, I think the problem is, and not to go on my whole thing again, when you have only one or two outlets that are covering it, not everybody else is covering it, they get kind of pigeonholed as being the UFO news channel. Then they're the ones that, because they have Ross Koldar on there, so that's their thing, and that's the way that they get views. So they're not looked upon as one of the top players, right? I don't know, man. It's interesting that there's no answers whatsoever. I don't buy that, because if there's no answers whatsoever, that's even scarier. I prefer to believe that they have the answers and they're not giving them to us because of the way that they play the game and the way that the game's been played, and they don't feel like we need to be told until we need to be told, whenever that is, and hopefully to them that's never. I think the scarier thing is, I don't know what it is. I don't know. What is that thing? I don't know. 17 days. We didn't even send any jets. We sent nothing up there. I don't know. Over one of our most prominent bases. What was it? I don't know. But did you see Taylor Swift's in the news again? Oh, okay. I don't know what that was. What was that? Got me. I mean, chances are that are unlikely. So it is what it is. This story is still developing. We're going to talk about it. To me, it's fascinating. So when I saw an opportunity to talk about it again, I wanted to. Put your comments in there. Tell me what you think. Is this something that is going to be investigated, or will it disappear out of the news cycle just like these things did after 17 days? Put your comments in there. Tell me what you think. As always, put your comments, hit like, hit subscribe, do all that. You want to become a member on the channel, you can do that. Or you can support the channel by getting one of our sponsors. And the way that I would tell you to do that is NordVPN. Let me tell you about Nord, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Peace out. I wanted to tell you about today's sponsor, and that is NordVPN. I think NordVPN is the best. I do. It's really good for sports. There are games sometimes you can't find in your region, and you switch your virtual location. You can switch it to anywhere that is showing the actual event. You can protect your private data like bank details, passwords, online identity. You know, what's so great about NordVPN, they can switch your virtual location, and it allows you to save money by purchasing flights, hotels, subscriptions from other countries at a cheaper price. NordVPN has a threat protection feature, and it protects you from viruses, malicious malware, and phishing sites. One NordVPN account can be used to up to 10 devices. Now, to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, you got to go to nordvpn.com/DTE. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast description below. So thank you to our friends over at NordVPN. You can check it out.